So welcome everybody. This is Professor Hennel. I'd just like to welcome everybody and thank you for coming here today. We're going to get started in just a minute, so hang with us. We're going to introduce the speakers in just a second. So appreciate everyone coming here today, and we'll see you in a little bit. If you have any questions, we're going to have a Q&A at the end as well, and also you can talk in the chat as well.
Perfect. And I think we have everybody that was in the waiting room connected to audio. So Rebecca, feel free to introduce.
All right, welcome everyone. We're so excited that you're able to join us today. We have Martin Chiario from Microsoft Argentina. He's the Chief Technology Officer, as well as Yamila Zachem, the Microsoft Argentina Solutions Director. We're gracious for their time today. We know they're very, very busy and excited to hear their insights and their stories. So I'll turn it over to you both. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It's a pleasure for me being here with you and trying to share this space and our mission, vision, and everything related with that.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure and an absolutely exciting opportunity for us to share our ideas, thoughts, and mission and vision for Microsoft products and services. Okay. So we are going to start, if you don't mind. I can give a little bit of an intro, Shami, if you are okay with it. The idea is to make it fluent. We pretty much we are corporate animals, so we came with this PPT, which has sections and everything is pretty much scheduled. But feel free to drop questions on the chat or even unmute yourself and feel free to share a thought or two if you will. I don't mind. Not sure, Shami, if you are okay with that, but I believe that that will be great. So if you don't mind, I will at least introduce myself. So I am Martin Ciarrillo. I am the CTO for Microsoft Argentina subsidiary. I have been in the role for 1.5 years. I joined during the pandemic, which is quite a history and certainly something that I will elaborate perhaps along the slides, because pandemic is certainly something to talk about within digital transformation. Before that, I was with EY for around 8 years with multiple roles, being the latest the leader for the multi-cloud expansion team. So my job was do the enablement of the cloud around the world for EY. And prior to that, IBM. So I've been on high-tech companies and doing technology work, delivery, design, and leading engineering teams pretty much my whole career. I have 40 years old. I am born and raised at VA. But I've been lucky enough to have traveled a lot, both business and pleasure. So I have known the war and the challenges out there. The idea of today's talk is to share a little bit of the vision that we have from the Argentina subsidiary, which is probably different as you may hear from other parts of the world. But also talk a little bit about why we believe Argentina is different, how it is to study at Argentina and delivering technology services from that part of the world. So that is a little bit of an intro. I will turn over to Shami to do the same now, and we will move the slides forward. Yeah.
That's perfect. Thanks a lot, Martin, for your introduction. My name is Yamila Zachem. I'm Microsoft Solution Director. In other words, my responsibility is more related with help and support our customer in different solution areas in which Microsoft is already organized in terms of move forward about innovation and digital transformation for each organization. So in order to talk about me, I am system engineer, and also I at least at work at Microsoft. On the other hand, I'm a professor at the university here in Argentina. I a degree professor for system engineering, and also for the post degree about AI, in particular machine learning implementation solutions in another university here. Both of the universities are public, as we split that in Argentina. From my life in Microsoft, I have been working at Microsoft at almost 13 years and passed through different roles, some related with support, other related with technology strategist, and then I spent more than 4 years in a particular solution area, which was data and AI, and then I moved to this new role for me. In terms of the presentation that we want to share with you, we prepare some agenda in order to drive and address the conversation, starting to share with us the Microsoft mission, which are the current challenges that we are seeing and experimenting in our country, region, and each organization of that, and how the technology is perform the digital disruption and how it could change the digital transformation vision about, and which is the proposal or the best way that we consider in order to address these initiatives in terms of the different factors inside the organization through the tech intensity process. So this is the agenda. As you mentioned before, we select a particular section in order to talk about the Q&A, but feel free to share with the chat some particular question that you have, and maybe some ideas, initiative, or what do you want to know about the region of Argentina also. In terms to move forward or starting with the presentation, we want to share which is the Microsoft mission. So from the general perspective, every great organization needs an enduring mission, a noble goal, and a challenge who address or define the North Star in order to perform. And not longer that Satya becomes the CEO, we announced ours. We found it hiding right in the plain sight, and it connects back to our earliest day as a company. We will empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And this is the way in which we live this mission, and in order we want to support, help, and accomplish our customers on that. And thinking in this mission, we want to share which are the current challenges that we are seeing, we are experimenting, the movement in which we are, and how the technology could make a part of this transformation process.
Yeah, before you move, Shami, what I wanted to add there is, as a leadership team for the Argentina subsidiary, we try to land the view of this mission within our local lens, right? So basically, we created our own Argentina subsidiary mission, which is unleashing the talent, the local talent, right? I mean, the people that is working for Microsoft Argentina, unleash the talent to position our country as a hub of technology talent through our strategic partnerships, right? I mean, in line with this mission, that is our local interpretation on how we can make this true for everyone who works from the Argentina subsidiary, right? And I thought that was totally related to what you mentioned about the global mission, right? Because we are one Microsoft across the globe, but it's not the same living at Argentina that living on the other side of the world. So we are part of a global company, but the way that we interpret that and how we live it on the day-to-day is an absolute factor that we need to consider. So we landed that for people to really live our mission locally. Sorry for that, Shami.
That's perfect, and this is super value insight that you already had, Martin. About the current challenges,
Yeah.
and okay, it take more time that to move to the next slide.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, we use this analogy a lot with customers, which is the digital transformation is, first of all, is something that changes and evolves within time, right? I mean, at some point in time, introduction of the home computers was disruptive, started something, introduction of mobile phone disrupted the world as we know it back then, and started another movement. So we like to see the digital transformation as a wave, right? A wave that basically change the established order, right? I mean, change the how you know things, how you envision the future, right? I mean, technology does that. Technology change the way that you might be imagining the future to be. So basically, we like the wave analogy because the wave is different, right? I mean, and it evolves, technology evolves. I found myself speaking about technology that was not a thing 2 years before that, right? I mean, does someone remember talking about a metaverse 2 years from now? Probably not. Did someone read something about quantum computers outside the academic space 3 or 4 years ago? Probably not. Now we are talking on the commercial space, how we can use quantum to change different industries, right? So we like this analogy on how a wave, you see it coming, right? I mean, you see it's going to go right your way, and you have a number of options that you can take. And if you move one slide, we can start speaking about that. But basically, you might be either at the top of the wave, you might be under it, you might be able to surf through it, or you might just see it passing by, right? And pretty much there is nothing to do about that. And with technology, is the same, right? I mean, we see companies trying to stay ahead of the curve, as you would say, right? I mean, trying to anticipate how technology will and or might impact their lines of business. And the reality is that sometimes that prediction is really hard to make because the pace of the evolution, the pace on how fast technology moves is faster and faster and faster. And being able to stay on top of the latest is very hard, specifically for companies that were created on the 20th century, right? I mean, even more for them, because if you think it over for a sec, the design premise for a company for the last century was volume was good, right? I mean, the bigger you were, the powerful you were, was better. And today that's a weakness, right? I mean, if you think it over, today the agilism and the small groups and the small development squads are the ones that are able to adopt, right, to technology changes in a much more nimble and agile way, which is an advantage. So what you see today is the small boutique companies are creating the greatest disruption to the giants, right? I mean, and we are talking about companies that have been out there for a century or more, right? I mean, Airbnb was able to gain more capitalization than Hilton, which is one of the oldest hotel chains out there in just 5 years, right? I mean, 50 years versus 5 years, boom, different change model of businesses applying different rules, and it changed it dramatically, right? I mean, Yellow Cab and Uber, same history, right? I mean, decades of ruling a given industry ended on a couple of years. So basically, what I'm trying to say here is, it is hard to predict what the future will be, and it's even harder with the pace of technology. And a very common mistake that we see out there is we tend to extrapolate our vision of the future based on what we know today, and not about the disruption that will be introduced of technology that is either already out there and we are not considering because we don't have it as part of the assets of our company, or technology that is not even there, right? I mean, my line of business might be disruptive for something that will be out there in a couple of years from now. So pretty much agilism and being able to adapt and adopt in a fast and nimble way is the name of the secret sauce that we recommend. What you will see on the big companies that are, of course, for obvious reasons, are not going to get smaller, is they organize into smaller teams and groups to be able to make decisions faster and to move faster and try to adopt their business models in a more efficient way to be able to absorb what technology might bring to the table out there. So I will give some context on certain things that certainly changed along the last years that might answer the question on why now, right? I mean, why now we see a moment where digital transformation or technology disruption is more important than ever, and what has changed that probably wasn't there 5 or 10 years ago, or even more, right? I mean, what you will see here on the screen is what was the presence of the different countries of the world into the internet, 2005, right? I mean, you will see that, of course, US was always there, right? I mean, the internet is mostly about US, but if you see the war in an holistic manner, and you see what was the present in 2005, you will see that there was some sort of presence of the big countries of the war, but you couldn't really say that you have a sort of globalized society, right? I mean, there were a lot of marginality and still are, right? I mean, we still don't have most of the world connected to internet. But if you move one slide, what you will see is that the connectivity increased dramatically, right? So now the digitalization of the world is in a much more evolved stage over what it was 10 or 50 years ago, right? I mean, and that is the cornerstone on what you need to drive the initial phases of the digital transformation, because you might put all the services out there in a digital manner to be able to consume for whoever wants to do it. But if people doesn't have basic connectivity to it, if countries do not have that connectivity among them, right? I mean, there is very little that technology can do. And we are talking about basic connectivity, which of course, the speed of the connections has evolved and the technology associated with it has evolved. But the basic presence of online creates that ubiquitous experience where you are connected to the internet all the time, right? I mean, you have a cell phone now, you're sending continuously information about what you're doing, where you are checking in, where you're checking out, what is your activity. So the digital footprint has increased significantly, not only on the developing countries, but across the globe. And that brings to the LATAM context that I wanted to bring to the table, which is basically our view and probably of particular interest of the audience on why you have today these two Argentinian individuals talking about technology, is speaking in a language that is not their native language. So apologize if I sound funny. So I've been delivering services for the world for most of my career, but still not my main language. So apologize if I sound different from what you're used to. So LATAM context and Argentina context within the connectivity that has dramatically evolved along the last decade. And let's talk a little bit about the cloud and the introduction of the cloud that has come along the, let's say, the last decade as well, and what are the conditions that those two factors created, right? I mean, the cloud pretty much puts resources available for anyone to consume. We like to say that it democratizes the access to technology, right? So basically, in the old war, you had to be a very big enterprise to have access to technology and all the associated innovation that that technology might bring to the table. Today, you have the proper connectivity. Within that connectivity, you can consume services from the cloud directly, the same services that a multi-million enterprise would have. You can have it within your startup of 2 employees, right? I mean, Shamila and myself, we can create a company and we will have access to the compute services that the biggest company in the world would have, the analytic services that any big company would have, and we can innovate with that and create a disruption that might hit and change the way that a certain business model works for that big company. So what is happening with LATAM, right? I mean, what's the deal with LATAM? We don't have the answer, but we have certain theories on what is cooking in this area of the world. So what we try to share within this slide is these are unicorns, right? I mean, these are unicorns. If you see in the lower parts of the presentation, you will see a number of names. You might be familiar with some of them, with all or with none. But truth be told is those are very successful companies that have outreached the borders of Argentina. Most of them are in the stock market, right? In the global stock market. So Mercado Libre, they do online retail, among other things. Global services, OutZero, they do authentication. Walla is a digital bank, and Despegar does trips and stuff related to that world, right? So they have a high capitalization in the market, and they started in a very far part from the world, Argentina, with a low GDP if you compare it with other countries of the world. Because the conditions that I mentioned earlier were met, right? I mean, they had access to all the necessary resources to be able to innovate. And what do we see that is also different from this part of the world that might help for that innovation to exist and that digital disruption to be accelerated? We see, I added a list there that I'm not able to follow now because I have this screen covering, but we see that the talent that is present here, because you have the right level of education available for anyone who might be able to take it, is there, and that creates a lot of people that goes to the university to study system engineering careers, such as the one that Jamila is a teacher, and others. We have a friendly time zone with the main markets of the world, and we have affinity for the language. So we are able to speak the language in a good way, enough to be able to communicate this as I am doing with you today, even though this is not my main language. So this is not, of course, an exact science, right? I mean, there are many conditions that create the right mix to be able to have the right ingredients to be able to have all these startups be able to get the right capital from other parts of the world and incubate their ideas and then mature enough to become a unicorn, right? But these are certainly the main points. Of course, the second point that has been accelerating the region significantly is the pandemic, right? I mean, the pandemic certainly erased the borders. Now, what you see in the local market, which is really interesting and challenging at the same time, is people from the technology sector is getting offers from abroad, right? I mean, companies from all over the world look for talent within Latin America countries, Argentina and others. They pay you in US dollars, which is a differential if you live here, because you know the economic realities, right? I mean, from different parts of the world are different. So basically, you might have a developer here located in VA producing code for a company based out of New York, getting their salary in US dollars right in their bank account. So pretty much the pandemic helped it to accelerate the digital transformation significantly. In fact, in most of the talks we do about digital transformation, we speak about digital acceleration, right? Because we've seen that most of the world was forced to adopt what we call a technology base, right? I mean, from one day to the other, all the banks, all the national institutions, all the let's say places where you have certain resistance to adopt technology was forced to do it from one day to the other because of the pandemic. So in most of the cases, you will see that you already have a base of technology that you can work with, right? I mean, in certain cases, we need to work with them to order their strategy going forward to be able to grow, but you have something, even in the places where you have the more rejection to moving towards a usage of cloud, for example, right? But that is pretty much the context of LATAM and what we see as different. You will see a part of the world where creativity is present because we usually have to deal with a lot of uncertainty for a variety of reasons, right? I mean, that is how our country is. And that creates a lot of creativity as well, right? I mean, out from our uncertainty, you have a lot of creativity. So we believe that that is a distinguished factor. Shami, I don't want to capitalize the vision of what Argentina is. Feel free to add a point of view or two, but that is very much what I wanted to share on this slide.
I absolutely agree with you, Martin. I found your summary quite detailed in order to share with the students which are our reality, which are our current challenges, and how we are working to address them. Martin mentioned some points related with digital transformation and with digital acceleration, right? So my next topic to share with you is, okay, which is the result of trying to think which is the digital acceleration and digital transformation addressed by organizations in the region and also in the world, but in particularly how we are working with companies here in Argentina. As Martin mentioned before, the normal question is why now? Which is, or why now is the best moment to address or to talk about the digital transformation or digital acceleration? Well, as Martin mentioned, 2 years ago, the pandemic started and it's moved to the most of the companies to the next level in terms of technology, in terms of this as digital acceleration. But it was not the only factor. Maybe it's the factor that we highlight or seen in particular related with the current context or the context in 2 years ago. But now I want to share with this or which things are also happening in order to need to address the digital transformation, the digital acceleration through the technology. And this slide is have some colors, but my main topic here is that most of the companies want to be data-driven companies, since they want to give some power to the data in order to accelerate their transformation, their experience based into the data. But data is not something new. We used to store data, consume data, query data for years and years ago, maybe decades. So why now? The main situation is related with the data coming from apps, from devices, and from other sources is growing. And when the organizations have the challenge to take decisions based on data, they need to process all this growing of the data. And when you have some platform, infrastructure, or some processes in which you can analyze the data, maybe if the data is growing at this rate, okay, you will need to redefine the platform, redefine the infrastructure in order to achieve your goals. So now the main difference is more related with the velocity in the data comes from, and the sources and the type of the data that the organizations need to process, to understand, and to use to drive their decisions. So this is a picture, maybe a colorful picture, trying to show you which is the rhythm of the data is growing, but why? But my question here is why now? And why now is more related with the data is coming into the velocity that we cannot address in the same way that we used to address it. So here is where the technologies appear in order to provide us the best way to work with the data, to analyze the data and trying to get the really intelligent actions in order to drive the company decisions. So now we are talking about digital transformation and we are talking about digital acceleration because we need to use the technology. We need to empower the technology disruption in order to analyze the data which is coming into the organizations. So maybe if we listen my pitch, maybe you say, okay, all is about data. Yes, when we think about the digital transformation and when we think about the digital acceleration, the cornerstone, as Martin mentioned, is the data. The data is which can allow us to move into the next level. Sometimes when I talked about the importance of the data, the modern data state technologies, maybe we said, okay, the company could accelerate into the digital transformation and the digital acceleration when the company is able to transform the data into intelligent actions. So when you get the intelligent action, you will be accelerating your transformation. But the other question could be how? And when we're trying to cover the second question, I just want to set a midpoint. And when I set a midpoint, I'm talking about today. The time, if I think in the time frame, I said, okay, today we are in the midpoint, and we have to evolution the data, thinking on what happened in the past and how I can react into the future. And here we envision that two things. We need to evolution the data from data, not only in information, not only in knowledge. We need to move into insights. We need to talk about insight. It's not enough talking about data or information when you are receiving the amount of data that the organization are receiving now. And the second one is I'm not able to think only in the future if I'm not solving the past. I need to analyze the past, and I have to implement the traditional analytics, more related, okay, what happened and why, or what was the root cause of the thing that happened in the past. I need to analyze, I need to get the complete picture in order to be able to move forward. And then when I perform my past picture, if it's a way valid to say that, if I get this picture, okay, I'm ready to apply the advanced analytics then. And what means analytics, advanced analytics phase? Okay, it's more related what will happen, and the most important thing is how I have to react for that thing that could happen. So this is something that the organizations need to focus, need to invest in terms of predictive and prescriptive analytics in order to change the data, in order to not be more data and becomes insights or intelligent actions. So when we put the data and all the technology around, manage, get the insights, accelerate the digital transformation, we are able to potential some pillars inside the organization. And at that point is that we want to share, which is the Microsoft digital transformation vision, thinking in the things that Martin mentioned before, and this analysis that I'm sharing with you with the data, the volume, the velocity, and the organization's needs in order to be data-driven organizations, right? So in that point, we call this picture, this live picture, the digital feedback loop. And this digital feedback loop represents the 4 pillars in which the digital transformation could be received from the customer, for the organizations. And in the center, you will find the data, but not only the data, the technology, the technology disruption with the data, or system intelligence, or maybe AI, in order to transform the data and empower the organization in those 4 pillars. Which are the 4 pillars right now? They are more related with the parts that interact every day inside the organizations. So the first one is, okay, how I can use the data and the AI, for example, in order to engage differently with their customers. How I can provide to the customers an experience, a different experience, in order to be more closer to the organization or to the brand. How the organization could be the first option for those customers. Then the second pillar is more related with the employees. How with using the data and AI could empower the performance of the employee, how the organization could provide some tools to the employees in order to connect differently with their customers, or maybe thinking in the predictions, thinking on advanced analytics, for example, how the organization could be more efficient and how they could optimize their operations. And if we connect differently with the customer, we empower the employees and the organization becomes more efficiency, why not could create, innovate, or propose new products or transform the existing products. And everything it's about empower each pillar with the data, with the technology disruptions, in order to accelerate this experience for the organizations. So this is something that becomes the data in terms of intelligent actions, in terms of insights, because they need to get this insight at the same time they used to analyze the old data. So this is something that we want to share, because this is part of our day-to-day work with the organizations here in Argentina. We are empowering the organizations in terms of move into the data-driven companies, looking for accelerate the digital transformation. This is something that we are work now. We are working 2 years ago or 3 years ago or 4 years ago, but the moment is now, the moment in which the technology are disrupting this everyday life is now. And something that we also need to consider is not only technology. We need to consider 3 factors: people, processes, and technology. So because of that, I want to pass to Martin in order to share our vision about
before that. You left me with a couple of ideas that I want to share on top of what you said, which is 2 things. I was going over a paper the other day from IDC that estimates that the amount of data that will be generated by the humanity as a whole in the next 3 years will be bigger over what happened during the last 3 decades, right? I mean, so in 3 years time, we'll have more data over what we have over the last 30 years, right? So the volume is certainly one of the challenges. And the second challenge is the speed, right? So if we need to envision how the companies of the future will be, we see those companies being hyper connected, right? That is more connected over what they are today. That is real-time decision making. So if you don't automate part of that decision making, right, in a way as Shami described, you're not being able to compete in the future market, right? I mean, you don't have time to, let's say, call for a board committee 1 month from now and decide how and when you will launch that new product, right? I mean, you need to make decisions based on what you know of the future, right? I mean, propensity around how you think the future will be and what you know from the past, right? And make your special mix of decision making, what make your product different, automate that and go to the market, right? In an automated fashion. So we can move on, but I wanted to share those 2 points before.
Thank you for adding your thoughts, Martin.
Yeah, absolutely. And this brings us to one of the last topics that we wanted to cover, which is a really interesting concept present at Microsoft, which is touch intensity, right? I mean, I never investigated where the original term was originated, but certainly Satya used this a lot on his keynote speeches. So what is tech intensity about, for me, is the cornerstone of the digital transformation, right? When you think about any transformation related to technology itself, if you move to the next slide, you will probably think about the PPT, right? I mean, you probably heard about people, process, and technology. What is tech intensity about? Tech intensity is how you are able, how fast you are able to spin that wheel, right? I mean, for me, in my mind, digital transformation is very little about technology itself and a lot or mostly about people. So what do we see is the velocity and the pace for a company to be able to absorb the disruption that technology is causing. This is people being able to understand and learn new technologies is as important as being able to invest and adopt the technology itself, right? So what I'm saying here is inventing the cloud and having the cloud there is as important as learning on how to use it, right? So a company might invest millions and millions of dollars in technology. If they don't do an equal importantly investment on making sure all their employees are being able to use that technology, they will fail. So tech intensity is the ability of the companies to surf the wave that I mentioned at the beginning, right? I mean, if you don't want to be under the wave or see the wave passing, tech intensity is the way you need to go through it, right? I mean, how to go through this? There are a variety of resources. I did a post on LinkedIn like 1 hour ago showing a couple of GitHub repositories that you would be able to go through and learn about machine learning, about IoT, about many skills that are available today and will more certainly be valuable for the companies of the future. So what do we look when we hire people? Do we look for people that has all the answers and knows all the technologies out there? Absolutely not. We look for people with the right hunger, right? I mean, the hunger to learn, because the technology that people will need to go through in the next few years probably doesn't exist today, right? I mean, the challenges are going to evolve, and the adaptability and the way of being curious, being hunger for more knowledge or understand how to surf the wave is pretty much the capabilities that we look for. Of course, that we like people who has a good technology degree. That's a base that gives you the basics that shapes your brain to have those capabilities that I mentioned. But in the day-to-day, you need to read a lot, be curious a lot, go through a lot of trainings, perhaps that are not traditionally academic, right? I mean, online, Udemy, Microsoft Learn, I mean, whatever is what you like. But at the end of the day, being able to surf the wave is the more important thing, right? I mean, that is basically what will inflict the velocity of the transformation for an enterprise, right? I mean, how the people and those small pods, those small teams within even a big company are able to spin the wheel, and how fast they're able to make decisions and put products, features, software out there. That is what will drive the transformation for a company to be able to have their service, have their product out there more in line with what the users want. So hearing the users is a key factor, right? Because they adopt things faster than anyone else. So having these feedback loops and being able to adapt to those small iterations, you probably heard a lot, the fail fast, fail often, right? I mean, be able to spin that wheel with the right pace is basically what we see that will create these virtuous cycles that are required for the future. Other than that, what else do we have, Shami? I believe we pretty much cover, and 3 minutes ahead of the Q&A block. Am I right, or do we have anything missing yet?
No, actually, all the topics that we prepare and we were thinking to share with you are already covered. And now we just define a section in order to cover the Q&A. Maybe I just not checking the chat. I'm not sure if there is any question, but maybe we can start with that session.
Yeah, absolutely. Not sure how we want to do this. Do we want to just write on the chat or unmute?
I think either way would be fine. I don't see
Okay.
any questions in the chat at the
Okay.
moment, but participants, feel free if you have any questions to drop them into the chat or come off of mute. Either way is fine.
Okay, I see a comment from Carl saying cool Geo, clever, still room for a lot of growth. Your English is better than some native speakers. Not sure who was that, but certainly not me. Exactly, everyone had to change overnight. It's crazy amount of data that we produce. It's all about data, buddy, and how and what you do with the data, right? I mean, what decisions, as Shami was mentioning, how you translate that data into products, into services, into decisions, into a company. That is the secret sauce. Can you
Absolutely.
explain more about the different types of data? Probably.
Sure.
So Shami was a data specialist prior to his role, so she's probably better suited than me to go through that one. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Kim, for the question about data. We have 3 types of the data that the organization have to analyze and to transform in terms from the data to insights. They are the structured data, the semi-structured data, and structured data. But the thing that this is something in my mind changed my vision about how to process the data and how to use the data is that the 80% of the data is unstructured. So if we move 10 years ago, we used to talk about databases, about SQL Server in our case, Microsoft, for example, but every time about structured data, trying to think in terms of instructions, in terms of field, in terms of data related with some schema. But now, and in particular in the last 5 years, this trend changed aggressively. And now the companies are receiving more unstructured data than the all structured data used in the last time. So when we talked 10 years ago, the most technology or the core technology for the customers are the enterprise data warehouse. Now we are not talking about enterprise data warehouse. We used to use some terms like data lake, but not only data lake is the trending topic now, is more related with lakehouse. Why? Because the amount of unstructured data is higher than ever we can thought. So now we need the proper technology in order to drive both words. So the unstructured or semi-structured data.
Yeah, and constructing on top of that, of course, that you have a lot of video, audios, picture out there.
Yeah,
and the
not
amount
only
of decisions,
NoSQL.
right? The amount of decisions that you want to make and the way that you process that type of data is different, right? I mean, you have face recognition now that you might want to include to make decisions around a recording of, I don't know, a video, something, everything. I mean, I have that to get in to get into my house, right? I mean, I have a face recognition for my house, or you might to make a decision around a call in a call center automatically, right? I mean, whenever you hear word X, do Y, right? I mean, and you can do that. But that is all data. It's unstructured data, and you can automate that. So the good thing is, you have it on the cloud. You have the analytic capabilities to analyze that data in a basic way, in a detailed way, and construct machine learning models, go wild and do deep learning, right? I mean, go the next level and make that decision process as automated as possible, as I mentioned earlier.
Absolutely, Martin. And related with the previous question is that I hate questions that say, do businesses really to store all the data they produce, or how do they decide to what to store? The organizations need to store all the data, but that doesn't mean that use the old data in order to take their decisions. They need to analyze the data, the data points based on their goals and future decisions, and use this workflow in order to move the data into insights. But at the first phase, you will need all the data, maybe with some analysis, but you will need it. And on the same time, the next question is related with the quality control. Absolutely, the quality control of the data is a common challenge for the organizations, and maybe the best way to address it is thinking in the governance. And when we talk about the data governance, you need to cover topics like people, processes, and technology, where the technology is only the 20% of the investment. So maybe the technology could allow us to implement the data governance processes, but the really main part of those processes are the people, the roles that we have in the organizations, and how this role can interact with the data. Martin, I'm not sure if you want to add something on that part.
No.
I just will move forward into the
No,
other questions.
yeah. So I like that this one from Graham. He's asking if being older and transitioning into these fields is a problem, switching careers. So I will give my opinion, of course, right? I mean, I believe that what we see as a trend is technology will evolve in such a way that will be no longer a nice to have, but something that will be there, right? I mean, you will not need to be part of a technology company or group within a company to know about technology. We like, and you might want to go deep on this one because I don't have time to go over it in detail, but we have the concept of the citizen developer, which is basically how we envision development to happen in the next ages, right? I mean, and how that will happen, which is the use of low code, the proliferation and the adoption of low code, no code type of approaches will make anyone, even if you are not a developer, you will be able to put an application out there using what you might know from another industry, and boom, put together an application out there. We had some exciting announcements within the build this year. So Express Design as an example, part of the Power App suite. You can draw an application on a napkin, take a picture, upload it to the cloud, and in seconds you will have a proposal on how that application might exist, right? I mean, might resolve a problem. I advise you guys and girls to go out there and try that because it's incredible. Shami, not sure what you think. Is that a problem to be
actually,
old and want to change?
This was the best announcement from my side, from my opinion, because you will empower every person who is not a typical developer in terms of get a first app as product. So this is something that you will see how we can empower every person in every organization on the planet. So this was a really, really nice announcement from my perspective. And on top that you are mentioning about the citizen developer, I just want to add a little thing related with data. From the data perspective, there is also a similar role, which is the data citizen. And when we talked about the roles involved in terms of the evolution of the data, there is not only the typical role as data scientist or data engineer. You also have a typical role from the citizen perspective, which is the data citizen. So trying to provide each role, each person in the role, the best tool in order to achieve their potential.
That is
Um,
great. I believe we have like 3 minutes, perhaps one more
yes,
question. Not
I'm
sure
not
if we have.
seeing another question, Martin. Just
I
let
see
me know
one,
if.
but I'm not
Ah,
sure. I'm not sure if I get it. So Sharet said, do you think the
mm,
progression of data science in South America will help the progression of physical infrastructure as well? So what do we mean in this context by physical infrastructure? So Shami, if you got it and you want to go
No,
for it, if
actually,
not,
I have the same doubt that you, Martin,
okay.
which is what means about the progression of the physical infrastructure. Now, when we are talking about the technology disruption, the most of time we are talking about cloud, because
Right.
if we need to cover each requirement with hardware in on-premises, could be a very difficult challenge to address, which has mean if we are looking in terms of the procurement processes inside the companies, when you need more hardware, you will need to pass through this process. And maybe when you get the new hardware, you will need more, and you never be able to be at the same level that you are needing to execute or to use in terms of compute. When you are talking about cloud, you will use everything that you are needing, and you are able to address the demand in other ways. So because of that, I'm not sure what that means in terms of physical infrastructure, if the difference between cloud or on premises maybe could be that point that we mentioned.
Yeah, exactly. So constructed on top of that, what we see is the evolution of technology, as I said before, low code, no code for the citizen developer, and consumption of cloud will become more and more a commodity type of consumption, right? That is companies, people, governments will start consuming more and more from the cloud in a commodity way, right? I mean, it will be easier and easier. If you see the latest announcement that Microsoft has made in terms of the industry clouds, what we see is that getting deeper and deeper. That is, you have a retail, you go to our retail cloud, you have applications that are specifically created for the retail industry with workflows that are specifically meant to solve retail specific problems. Same for medicine, same for sustainability, which is a cross cloud that we have. And we see that more and more. So whenever you are into retail, you don't need a specific IT department to make your business digital. You just go and consume it. You need people that knows specifically about the business, right? Technology will become a commodity type of consumption.
Sure. Martin, I know that we are on time. I'm not sure if there is another question from my side. I want to say thank you for the time, for the invitation, and for being touched at the distance with this topic that we really want to share with you. So I appreciate a lot your time, and of course, thanks a lot for the invitation.
Thank you so much. We definitely appreciate Martin, Yamila, you to be here today. Rebecca from World Strides, thank you so much for putting us in contact with such wonderful presenters. And also a big thank you to Professor Hennel and Professor Hensel for contacting our office to want to put this together for their students. Wonderful to have you here. Thank you very much. And is that good? Anything else you want to say, Professor Hennel, Hensel?
I'd just like to thank you again. I think this gives us a lot to discuss with our students and to think about. And I think when you talked about the growth of the data and how much data we're going to be consuming and we need to analyze, it gives us a great starting point to make sure our students are prepared not only for today, but for whatever 2-3 years that we don't even know it's going to be there. They're prepared for that as well. So again, thank you very much.
Absolutely, and thanks for having us. Maybe next time we can do it in person now that
be great.
In person is a thing again,
That's
right?
good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It
We
could
actually
be
been in
great.
Orlando last month, so
Oh, wow.
we go there
Yeah.
often. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Thank you
Perfect.
for
Sounds
having
good.
us.